Hey guys, and welcome! Today I want to give you a little heads up on two things that seem to be broken since the last update, because I think it's really important for you to know about this, as it will definitely affect your gameplay. What I'm talking about is the proximity spotting and the scope glint, and both don't really work as intended at the moment. Usually I include stuff like this in my Did You Know videos, and I also wanted to do it this time, but it turned out to be far more info than expected and also too important to be simply mentioned somewhere. And I want to start with the scope glint, because here there were some changes made with Season 5 that were even mentioned in the patch notes. Over there it said that they have fixed an issue that caused weapon scope glints to not appear on several 4x and higher scopes, but they did not mention that this is actually a change and not a fix. Because before the update, only optics with a 6x zoom or higher had a scope glint and none of the ones with a lower zoom, but now all optics with a 4x zoom or higher have a glint. This means that the Raven 4x, ACOG 4x and PSO 5x that did not glint before will give away your position when aiming down sights now. And that's definitely a change that will affect a lot of players and playstyles. And here it also doesn't matter what kind of weapon you play. A Raven 4x on an assault rifle or an SMG will glint in the same way the M11 6x does on a sniper rifle. So the last optic you can play before getting seen all across the map is the M22 3.5x. At least that's so far the theory, because when reading about this change I was already wondering how they will solve this for the hybrid and canted optics. So as usual I tested everything and that gave some very interesting results. But first of all, what is scope glint in Battlefield 2042 and how does it normally work? Well, scope glint is a glare that gives away your position and can be seen all across the map. It gets triggered when you aim down sights with any weapon that has a 4x scope or higher equipped, but it is only visible for the person you are aiming at directly. For players standing in an angle to you, the glare will not be visible. And it will also only start to glint when you are more than 20 meters away from your target. Below 20 meters, none of the optics will have any glint, no matter if you aim at a player directly or not. And that's so far how it's supposed to work. And that was also the first thing I tested. Do the optics that are supposed to have a scope glint really have one? Because that was not always the case before the update. And good news here, yes, they do. The Raven 4x, ACOG 4x and PSO 5x that are new to the party all have a glint, and the other optics with more than 5x zoom as well. But then I tested the Ghost hybrid that has a variable zoom between 1.5 and 4x, and the Target T8, which is a canted iron sight in combination with a 4.5x zoom scope, and to my surprise, none of them had a glint. The Ghost hybrid even starts with a 4x zoom by default now, and only if you want to go down to the 1.5x you need to toggle it by pressing F on PC or right stick on console. And for this optic I can understand that the scope glint is hard to implement with the variable zoom. But then for the target on the other hand, there's always the same zoom and you only switch over to the canted iron sight. And it still doesn't have a glint. That seems very illogical to me, and I also thought that these kind of optics were the reason that the scope glint had always started at 6x and higher, because that makes this whole mechanic a lot easier to understand. Now we have 4x scopes that have a glint, like the Raven and ACOG, and optics with the same zoom values that do not glint. That's more confusing than helpful. However, it also means that when you always used to equip the Raven or PSO to your weapons, you should now switch to the Ghost or Target if they are available. If not, then the only optic you can use without a glint is the M22 3.5x or everything with a lower zoom. But what you can do as well at the moment, at least on some weapons, is to toggle the scope glint in the same way you would toggle an underbarrel attachment. Yes, you heard that right. I found this out by accident when testing the different optics, and what I actually wanted to do was to turn off the laser sight because I found it a bit distracting. But when I turned it off, I also disabled the scope glint. When turning the laser back on, the scope glint was there again. And after seeing this, I tested it for all weapons except for the GEW, MTAR, M416 and BFP, because I don't have any of the higher zoom optics unlocked for them yet. But what I found out was that the M44 sidearm, the PBX, P90 and PP2000 SMGs, the RM68, AC42 and AEK assault rifles, the RPT, M60, M24B Type 88 and RPK LMGs, the VCAR and the GVT all have this issue. It seems to be connected to the underbarrel toggles somehow, and it doesn't matter which ones of the higher zoom optics you use. It only depends on the weapon. So with all of these, you can use every optic you want, and when you have a 4x scope or higher, you can simply turn off the glint by pressing X on PC or holding D-pad down on controller. And it also doesn't matter if you have a laser sight or a grip or the bipod equipped. The only tricky thing is that when you not have a laser sight or flashlight equipped, you never really know what state your scope glint has right now. But with a laser and flashlight, it's easy to tell, because when the attachment is activated, the glint is also active, and when the laser or light is turned off, the glint is turned off as well, even on a 12x scope. And while this is hilarious to watch and has a great advantage, it's also a massive bug that can get very, very annoying if it's not fixed as soon as possible. I forwarded it to DICE already, so I hope they can resolve this with the next update. Something else you should know about the scope glint is that it also appears when you zoom in with the underbarrel grenade launcher, but of course only when you have a 4x scope or higher equipped on your weapon, and only on weapons that are not on the aforementioned list. So the SFAR, for example, with Raven 4x will not only glint when you aim down sights with the weapon itself, but also when you zoom in with one of the underbarrel grenade launchers. And I think this needs fixing as well, because if this is intended, then every weapon with a scope should glint when you normally hold it in your hands already. And in addition to this, the canted iron sight of the RM68 is also not disconnected from the optic on top of it, which means when you have a 4x scope or higher equipped here, but you use the canted sight, the weapon will still glint. And that's basically the same scenario as the target T8 has, where you have the scope on top and the iron sight as canted, but with the difference that the target does not glint while the RM68 does. So there's definitely a few things off with the scope glint mechanic at the moment, and that makes it very, very confusing. And the second point for this video, and this was pointed out by someone in the comments, is that proximity spotting is a bit broken as well at the moment. Usually proximity spotting means that when you point your crosshair at an enemy who is in your line of sight and within a range of 50 meters, the player will be temporarily marked for you with a red dot above the head and also with their name. But they will not be 3D spotted for anyone else in your team, and also not spotted as a red dot on the minimap. And when you move your crosshair away from them, then the red dot disappears. And this also still works. But what we have right now in addition to it is that this mechanic also works through walls and obstacles on a distance of up to 10 meters. So right here in this example, you can clearly see that there is another player on the other side of the wall, and that's of course not how it should work. Besides this, the red dot doesn't appear anymore as long as the player is within your field of view, so it doesn't matter if you point directly at them or not, you will still see them. And you can sometimes even manually spot enemies that are on the edge of objectives. So there might be a bit of their uniform sticking out, but actually you wouldn't be able to see them, and still you can spot them. Good news though are that smoke grenades and smoke from gadgets or vehicle upgrades still breaks the spotting, and you're also not able to proximity or manually spot anyone through it. So this mechanic is still working as intended, but proximity spotting in general seems to be a bit broken. And that's it for today. I hope this video helps you to be more aware of these issues when in game, and to understand how some players know that you are behind the wall, for example, or how a sniper with a 10x scope doesn't have a glint. And if you found this helpful, be sure to drop a like or a comment below, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Until then, thanks for watching, and thanks to my members for the additional support. I'm the Catwoman, and you are awesome.